It's almost a month before the first votes are cast in the nomination process, and GOP candidate Donald Trump says he plans to spend millions on a major TV ad blitz. So far in 2015, he spent zero on advertising, something he pointed out at his rally last night.
Starting around January 4th, we're spending a lot of money. We're going out and spending a lot. I loved the concept of saying I spent the least and I'm the best result, because that's what it's all about.
Will this help boost Trump's numbers at the polls even more? Let's bring in Proactive Communications President Mark Serrano. Mark, this is now when it's down to kind of your hammer and nail, is it not? You really need a good ground campaign. Is this part of it? Does he need to do it?
I'm a bit skeptical, frankly, Dagen, because of where Trump's come so far. The phenomenon of Donald Trump's candidacy comes from earned media. His ability to command ratings is the primary reason why he is leading in national polls by double digits. So, frankly, because he's a businessman and an investor, and he looks at everything from the perspective of a return on investment, I'm not convinced that he's going to look at this and say, I'm going to get a good return on investment in paid media. So I'm a bit skeptical. I'm not sure that he really needs to do this. The only reason why I think he would consider it is maybe to bolster his standing in Iowa, where, you know, the polls have come a little closer. But candidly, Iowa's really not very good at picking GOP nominees.
Mark, let's talk about his spending and his ground campaign in the critical, particularly as you move into the southern states. It's one thing when people talk about Ted Cruz, they talk about he's got incredible data, incredible metrics. He has a very, very strong ground campaign. Will Trump suffer? Because the polls don't indicate that Trump is suffering at this point. But will that give Cruz an advantage over Trump that maybe we aren't seeing at this point?
Look, Cruz, you got to give him credit. That guy has been very patient, very methodical. He's absolutely built a first-class campaign team. But Trump has built a pretty good team himself in over a dozen states, my understanding is. And so what will happen is, I think as we roll through the early primaries, they'll ramp up even more hiring, although they've done pretty good in the early states in terms of hiring with a ground game. But look, you've got to keep in mind there is this phenomenon of earned media that none of the other GOP candidates can come close to. They can't get any oxygen in the room because Trump takes it all up. And I think that's going to count for a heck of a lot going through these states. Keep something else in mind, too, Dagen, a big, big factor. There are 14 states that have open primaries. A lot of Reagan Democrats are going to support Donald Trump and will help him get the GOP nomination.
Hey, Mark, Scott Brown. First of all, in New Hampshire right now, you're seeing a tremendous amount of ads on the TV. It's, you know, you work out in the morning, you're on the bikes, and there's like 10 TVs, and it's basically turning into white noise. You know, you have the AOT race in New Hampshire. You've got, between, the president governor, and then you have all the Jeb Bush, Trump references and Jeb Bush ads and the like. Isn't it going against his philosophy? Listen, I spent zero, and I'm getting all this great press, and I have a lead. Doesn't he become more like one of the guys at that point? Number one. Number two, I'm noticing in New Hampshire in particular, because I obviously live there, that Trump's ground game isn't up to par with what's happening with Christie at this point. Christie seems to be the dark horse. Will he win? No, but can he come in second? Yeah, I think so.
Well, Senator, what I would point to is the idea that Chris Christie has to compete with Jeb Bush and John Kasich and Marco Rubio to be the establishment candidate. That's really their competition. I don't think Trump is so much their competition. I think one of them wants to come out of New Hampshire as the leading establishment candidate. So it's almost like I see two parallel races going on. And, frankly, what Trump's been able to do in New Hampshire as in other states is draw crowds. I mean, I don't think any of these other candidates draw 1,000 or 2,000 people to events. They may draw 100 or 200. You certainly know New Hampshire better than anybody. But I think that's part of the retail politics.
But Mark, I was listening to the Trump rally last night, and to his supporters, maybe this doesn't matter, but it's a lot of bluster, and he starts by reading his own poll numbers out loud, and then he attacks one person after another, but there's no substance there. I want you to listen. We were talking about Chris Christie. Who did Trump go after among the many last night? Chris Christie. Listen to this.
The people in New Jersey want to throw him out of office. They say, why isn't he running New Jersey? We're a disaster state. we're going to hell, and our governor's up in New Hampshire every single day having town hall meetings. He ought to be doing it in New Jersey, in all fairness, okay? I mean, we love New Hampshire, but he shouldn't be up here all the time. He's supposed to be running the state.
And by the way, Trump also went after Christie for the post-Hurricane Sandy meeting that he had with President Obama, which, you know what? He's a savvy politician, because that is a sore spot for many, many Republicans.
Right. Well, as Senator Brown pointed out, Chris Christie is obviously on the move. He's growing. He's building a team there. But he is a flawed candidate. Chris Christie expected to be the straight-talking candidate, the anti-PC candidate, and Donald Trump took over that mantle for him. Let's not forget, voters in the GOP primary are angry, they're furious, they are fed up with government and politics as usual. That's what Trump is tapping into. He's going to tap into that in New Hampshire. I mean, his numbers in New Hampshire are still very strong, and what we're going to see is people will coalesce around a Trump candidacy largely founded on their disgust with our economic security and our national security in America.
But just really quickly before we go, Mark, I'll add this. I think that Republicans are fed up with losing. I think that they're fed up with losing 2 elections in a row. But the question that everybody has to ask themselves is, can Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in a head-to-head? And the polls say no. Many of polls say no.
Yeah, it's a valid question. But you know what? I really believe that Trump is the one candidate who can draw a number of Democrats and independents. So, look, I think we could still have an outsider like Ted Cruz could absolutely command this race. He could take over after these early states. But I'm telling you, there are dynamics in this race that Trump commands, tapping into the angst of voters, using earned media so effectively that so far no one else can really touch or tap into it. And I think he can continue that on in a general election race if he's the nominee against Hillary Clinton, taking away independent voters and some Democrats.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you, Mark Serrano,
Thanks,
for
Dagen.
us.